Welcome to another episode of the Smithereens podcast. I'm your co-host, Jared.
And I'm your other co-host, Tom.
And today we're talking about creative problem solving. Tom, who do we have today?
Jared, today we have Chrissy Pine, a partner and creative director, and Colin Whitman, another partner and marketing director.
Double dose of the partners.
Ooh.
Yeah, so today we're talking about things about problem solving, finding a solution, working together and collaborating on things to get projects done. So
yeah, and their history of getting projects done. So we hope you guys enjoy it.
Did you guys hear that John Krasinski and Emily Blunt bought a house in Orchard Park because they're filming A Quiet Place 2?
They're not renting one? They bought one.
Maybe it's right. I'm not entirely sure.
Are you serious?
Emily Blunt.
Yeah. They
Emily
said that
Blunt,
they
and she and John
were
Krasinski
looking at
are
a place
married.
in the suburbs because he's shooting Quiet Place 2 this summer.
Well,
Right?
They're shooting it in Akron, and they got a place in Orchard Park. And so that's like, oh yeah, great idea. We're gonna stay here, and it's gonna be awesome. And it's still like an hour commute every day. And this idea of like, okay, we're not gonna have to fly in every week, but like an hour commute every day is gonna fucking suck.
Wow.
Yeah, especially
I'm going to have to go back to Orchard Park.
after long days.
go
in
hang
the
out.
Talking. Yeah.
You know, listen, I was thinking about doing another office trivia. I wonder if I could pull some strings.
Oh my
Get
god!
John
What if he
Krasinski to
showed
show up
up at your office
and
trivia?
do a question for it.
I would freak out.
As long as he doesn't bring Pam, I think we're good.
I agree with that.
Pam sucks.
Yeah.
Is everyone on that?
I don't
You're-
like Pam.
Oh my! I couldn't possibly be less on that train. I am
You like
very
Pam?
much pro Pam. Yes,
Pro Pam.
like not even a little
That
bit.
is disturbing.
I mean, she has her moments. I'm not going to like fight it. You know what? I'm going to play moderate in this. I'm between both sides. But I've heard enough of why you both don't like Pam. Colin, why are you pro Pam?
I like. So she never was given the support of someone that really loves her to like follow in her dreams. Like, so Roy is not a bad person, right? But he's just there, right? He's like
Right.
him and his brother like destroying the bar. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, he's just like
Sure.
he's a dummy, right? And like.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't, to be fair, I think part of like Pam's arc in that is also, it's not just Jim, it's also like her art show, like it's Michael, right? It's like
Yeah.
the entire office like helps Pam come into her own. Like she becomes more than,
That's true.
she's from the receptionist to the office manager to all of this. And then like, and she just grows like through, in the course of the series of The Office, I think that she might have the biggest amount of growth of any character.
This is tough for me to say as a mom of two, but I didn't like Pam after she had Cece.
Oh, okay.
I didn't like mom Pam. She seemed real cringy to me. She wasn't this
Yeah.
mousy, kind of funny sidekick of Jim. I liked their romance in the
Right,
beginning. She was
right.
great. Holly now. I am team Holly.
Pro Holly.
Oh,
Yeah, she's kinda weird.
love Holly.
It's a perfect match.
Yeah.
That one's if there's a good story of that, which is kind of the point really, is that Michael finally finds his person and
Right.
whatever.
Spoilers.
Oh, well. All right. Well, this has been great. And that's it, guys. That's the episode. That's the episode of The
Tune in
Office.
next week
See you later.
Where we talk to two other people about
where
The
we talk
Office.
about Parks and Rec or Lethal Weapon.
Or both.
Yeah.
How about a episode where it's you try to find a Venn diagram of where both those shows meet somehow?
Ooh.
Yeah, well, my whole thing too is when I watch whatever it be a TV series or a movie or a music video, I always feel like if there's dialogue, I'm always interested to look at the lens of how does the dialogue reflect in the visuals, you know what I mean? So
Sure.
a lot of what we do is our teams working together to kind of figure out, whatever message that we're trying to send out, what tools we're going to use, whether it be kind of just, you blog posts, emails, various things, and what kind of visuals do we, podcasts, and what visuals can we put out with that, or that can support it to get that whole message across. And when you look at shows like The Office, and when you look at big, powerful pieces of content, I feel like you have to know that like there's been numerous like workshopping sessions, like internal meetings of like all these creative teams getting out their voices and frustrations to get to that final deliverable.
Are you like specifically? I guess if we go back to like, I'm just talking about The Office, but like with that kind of a thing, are you talking about like how it's kind of almost like visually represented, like how it looks and feels, and like, how it's kind of
because like it's one thing to have like a script, right? Like you read the script, cool, script looks great, but it's like you have to act the script, you have to live the script, you have to put that emotion in the script, and that's like the creative visuals that like the actors give. They give the life to the words,
Yeah, life.
Yeah,
life.
exactly.
You have to bring the script to life.
Yeah. And like a lot of what we do, Chrissy being a creative director, like you're a lot of times you're finding that life through visual, whether it be through like billboards, whether it be through videos, like you're a part of that, and it kind of flows. The life flows through you, I guess, and your team. So I guess as an agency, we're a small agency, and a lot of times we work together and collaborate through problems that the client may have or through their goals, and a lot of it. It's a combination of strategy and a combination of creative directive, but like give us like your thoughts on like how you approach like a new project. Like you have a problem, you approach it. What are your first go-to things that you want to kind of know or hammer out right away? Sure.
I think we were talking about the work that we do as a whole is problem solving. It's a client comes to us with a certain need, and that can be viewed as a problem. Problem seems so negative, right? Like it's got this like negative connotation around it. But really it's coming up with a good solution to get you somewhere, to get you to that goal.
Right.
Or to learn more.
Sure.
And Colin's smiling at me because we were talking about this a little bit earlier. Now I'm stealing his thunder. But the question was posed to me first, so I get to kick it off.
for sure. And
go ahead.
Point. No.
Okay. So my thought on the visual aspect of that is often when I sit down with a client, when we jump into a project, an initial conversation, a phone call of, hey, I got your number from so-and-so and I'm looking for this.
Sure.
My mind immediately starts turning with visuals of what that could be. And
like visuals, you immediately start thinking visually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I start thinking of brands that I've worked with before, brands that I've admired, research that I've done that kind of connect and leach itself to their problem. And without that's happened so much more in this past year. I've talked about this actually with Gabby. Because of the experience that we now have under our belt and the things we've worked on and the time that we can dedicate to researching a bit more and the content that's out there on social media, frankly, that's at your fingertips is so accessible that I can automatically think of things.
Sure.
Just kind of instantly. And then that's not it. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
Sure. But you have like a drawing board. You have something to start with.
Yeah, stuff starts filling up that board immediately.
Yeah. Right. And I guess to take Jared's question and pose it to you, Colin, kind of how do you take those same things as not a visual way, but what about a brand necessarily do you pull in for your kind of like drawing board necessarily when you're starting to think over strategy and all that?
Yeah, I think like whenever I'm confronted with like a new brand, and so by your definition that I certainly agree with, like a new problem to solve, my initial thought is always like, well, I'm fucked here. I also don't know if swearing is okay in this podcast. I don't know if we've decided that from a brand perspective, but
okay. We're all adults.
Yeah, fair.
Hopefully.
So I like legitimately, truthfully, I often that's where my brain often starts. I have like a moment of panic, and then it's gone, and you start building things from there. And so for me, I don't really think visually very well at all, but I almost I build in pieces.
Sure.
So I'm just it's there in my head and I'm thinking about it, and then all of a sudden one thought snaps into place and I'm like, oh, yeah, this is a good shiny thought. This makes sense. And you know, from there I've got a building block to then like snap other pieces onto, and all of a sudden you're building something, right? And
Right.
That's
And I guess it's crazy how like your people's brains work, you know, and like even like I've been lucky enough to be a part of some projects where like the visuals will kind of drive the creative, but there's been a lot of times when like Colin, you were right, a fucking kick-ass line for a billboard, and that completely flips the design on its head, or it drives where we're going with that. You know what I mean? So it's just like, and I never really had an idea that could happen. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have that connection with like language that much to like really know that like you can evoke emotion, you know, by a certain line. The way you say it, the way it's written, the way it's displayed, it almost changes people's kind of perspective. Like, you know, some of the work we've done with some clients, it's like we could have had the same visual, you know, with different headlines, but this particular headline completely changed it, and it made everything make
unified
sense.
the vision.
Exactly, for sure.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
yeah.
I mean, I guess that's the end goal. I mean, that's why we're all connected here. Is that it's a unification of that vision.
Right.
You want the website to feel as strong as the ad looks and as the writing is compelling. Like you want it all to work together in a very strong way.
Yeah, and I think it largely comes back to Chrissy's point of like a client calls us and says, well, I need this and this, and okay, like that's your problem, and we are your team to solve that problem. And what we're tasked with is getting to the heart of whatever that is, and I guess whatever whatever our deliverable is for a given project. But let's say it's the whole kit and caboodle, right? So
Sure.
like, what we need to start with is getting to what that problem is, and then what everybody in this room does is apply their particular brand of skills to that problem. So like, if we know, okay, we need to communicate that we are really good at cooking chicken.
Sure.
Right, like so from a visual perspective, from a language perspective, from a web perspective, from a communication perspective, that's it all gets done in different ways, right? So
I immediately went to like a nice breaded, like baked, crispy chicken.
Oh, so yeah, from
Like,
cooking
immediately,
chicken. Yeah. I was pretty not pleased with myself for cooking chicken. But,
You go fried. Fried chicken
fried?
is the only way you do chicken.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's how we solve the problem.
well, I can actually think of a direct quote from Jared Threat, and this has nothing to do with problem solving, but chicken. We're on chicken right now for sure. So, but
That's fine.
I think that he once referenced chicken thighs as like the perfect food, and I'm on that team for sure. I stand for that.
Chicken
so,
thighs.
Yeah.
You can never ever overcook them. They're like the
Really?
Wolverine of like meat.
Yeah, because that's Wolverine's power is he can't be overcooked.
Strong power.
Clearly the best X-Men.
Yeah.
Clearly, him and Cyclops.
I think the idea of and just tell me to shut up
Okay.
if you want.
No,
Obviously,
we
always.
talk on a podcast. Yeah.
Fair, cool. That's the goal.
As long as the mouth stays on the mic.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the heads up. The I generally so like any one of us, I'll say this for myself right now, but like I solve problems all the time,
Right.
and it's very, very rare that I solve one of those problems on my own.
Sure. Yeah, no.
Right? It's like every like problem solving is the ultimate. I just think that problem solving is life, but even more so, I think that like true problem solving is true teamwork.
Absolutely.
And I think that what makes our team unique is the fact that, or I think what makes any team strong is having the respect for one another to like let that person get their thought off, like respect their opinion and be willing to accept criticism if no one fully supports your idea. Like we've been in a lot of workshops where like I've submitted an idea as like, oh, we should do this, and like people thoughtfully listen to me and like say you're on a great path. Like maybe if we take that, alter it a little bit, we'll get to that end result. And it's like we'll spitball from there. But we realize that like conflict during our internal meetings, it's a great thing because we end up with like that better of a product, you know?
Yeah.
So like I've like been in meetings with you, Chrissy, and you presented an idea, and like some of us who are, you know, on the design team have like, oh, maybe we should do this, and you're like, okay, let me go back and see, and that's been you able to kind of tweak our thoughts and like push your design or push someone's design like a little bit further outside of the box and get to that end result.
Yeah, sure. I think I've said this a few different times in a few different ways, but we're lucky. And a part of our team, the deck that we've stacked, we're still young. I'm young. I'm really young, you know, and fresh.
You are. It's just a funny thing to say.
No, but we are. But we've got experience.
Guys,
but we're
I can't
still
sell
young.
you enough. Those who are
How
listening.
young I am.
If you're not watching the video, I am 23.
Yes, nailed it. But you know, we're not stuck in our ways. You know, so you know, sure, I've designed this, and this. I know this could work. I know that maybe has failed, but like new ideas, bring them on. Like
Sure.
I haven't done. There's so much we haven't done.
Right.
There's so many things that we can do still.
I think there's like a beauty here of Colin, you've said this before specifically of like, you know, if you have an idea, bring it to the table. It doesn't matter what your role is here. Like I think the roles here, we all have our specialty, we'll say. But I remember like before I was part of this team.
My role is 301 redirects.
Yes, absolutely. And GitHub. He manages all of our GitHub. We're going to have a whole separate podcast on that, just me and Colin. But
Sorry.
it's okay. But yeah, like that idea of just, you know, when I talked to Rob before I was even part of this team, and he's like, being creative is just like implied. If you're here, you're a creative person.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're making a website, doesn't matter if you're writing content. You have to be that kind of person. And I think with all of that, like people have had great ideas for websites that aren't part of like the web team, and people have had cool ideas for content that aren't part of like, and it's good that like there's that openness, because I'm sure we've all been places or worked under people who maybe didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to think of a way to phrase this, but like people that force their method of problem solving onto the way that you solve problems, which I don't think everyone's open to do and solve everything here the way that they want to. There's no red tape. There's no, like Jared said, no one's going to stop you from speaking your idea and being like, well, all right, project manager, we don't need your thoughts on, you know what I mean?
I think that we do. It's a thing that we wrestle with as a company full of people that are empowered to do stuff, though, and people that are willing to solve problems and be creative. Ceding control, for lack of a better term, and being willing to say like, wow, I think I've got so many great ideas in this, but you know, this is like, you go do this thing, and but by necessity we have to do that here all the friggin' time. So
right.
I say friggin' off my harder F before, right? So
You're growing.
You know what's gonna? Here's the thing. I'll take that friggin' and then I'll just sample it over the fucking before, and then I'm also gonna sample it over me just saying that too.
the old frig for fuck.
Sounds like a really weird event.
It truly is. I think, like, again, back to the idea for my mind of problem solving being teamwork, though, and being like a team sport. That is, there's always like, when you've got people that are capable and give a shit,
right?
People are going to want to be like, oh, I've got this. And you have to say, okay, I'll take a backseat on this, or else things don't get done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe they get done once, but they don't continue to get done, or resentment builds, or so many problems can introduce themselves.
And I think to your point too, I think if there's a really nice thing about this, that not to like weirdly harp on everywhere else that I've worked, but I think like the lack of ego in these things too, I think kind of feeds into that, because I've definitely worked for people where I've projected a counterpoint to what their idea is, and because it wasn't their idea, they've been very dismissive of it, where I've seen everyone here, if someone had a better idea for something, be like, that's great. And like immediately, and to your point, like if like everyone's able to recognize like, hey, maybe this is a better idea than what I had, and that's great. Like, and that I think that's kind of what you want, really. And
For sure.
Because at the end of the day, you're going to get the best product. Like
Right.
our clients are going to get the best product because it's not just one person saying like, well, I didn't come up with that, so that's not what we're doing.
At the end of the day, they like anybody that works with us works with Mr. Smith. They don't work with Chrissy. They don't work with Colin. They don't work with Tom. They don't work with Jared. They work with Mr. Smith.
Right.
And like, this seems like a salesy point, but like you're totally right. I love that idea. Like, the best idea is the thing that carries the day.
Absolutely.
It just needs to.
And I think full support of everyone by that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't have someone on this team that didn't have that kind of a mindset. Jared, do you want to say?
Yeah, and I think what keeps us in line, or like what keeps us, in that whole checks and balances area, is that we know.
Checks and balances is a good term for
like,
that. Yeah.
We know the goal of the client. Like we know that they want to drive traffic to their website by 10%, and like all of our ideas, whether it be creative, whether it be things we do in the SEO, everything's driven by what this goal, this problem is. So like everything, no matter if you're on that team or not, you're still thinking creatively about X goal. Like, so any idea that you have, we try to do our best and we're relating it back to what the client actually needs. So when we present it, whether it be a piece of creative, whether it be, a new project, it's like, hey, we looked at this and we challenged every part of our team to like think strategically about this. Here's what we thought. Here's our goal. Here's what we want to put back in front of you. So like, it's been vetted by, I feel like 11 of the smartest people, creative people that, are at this agency, like back in front of the client, which is very, very impressive.
The 11 smartest people at this agency are the 11 people that are at this agency, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm making a joke, but also it's like everybody is here under this roof for a reason. And I don't want to be like too cute about this and say like, oh, we're all hands on deck for everything. Of course, we have departments and we have roles and things like that.
Sure.
But even something like so we're pioneering internally. I don't know that we're pioneering this for the world, but like a stand up meeting thing. Jared is largely leading this, and that's so that when anything that comes in through the door, we all know what's being worked on.
Right.
And I don't need to keep talking about it.
It just gives us an opportunity for everyone to kind of know, once we bring on a new client, when we start a new relationship, like what they are about, their company background, what we're contracted to do. And like, if anyone has any thoughts to start looking at like cool stuff, here's their website, here's what they've done, here's where they're located, like get familiar with it, because we might bring you in for a session at a later date through the life of that relationship. So it just puts it on everyone's radar to like, get to know, X company.
Yeah, and like thinking through different thoughts, and I'll stop talking about it after this. But like, so recently we had a project come in that's about golf, and our incredibly talented art director Renee Helda, I think this is it's not a direct quote, but somewhere near it, she's like, yeah, I was always confused in gym class. Like she just doesn't do sports really at all, right? But I still want to have her think about this problem because who knows what outside perspective she may bring in that unlocks things for an audience, right?
Right.
So,
and I think, that I guess that's the funny part of the industry that we work in when we think about everything that we do, and being tasked, like given this task of solving this problem it's not like we serve one universal type of client. We don't work with just one industry. We don't work with, like, if anyone looks at our, like, Colin's having some fun.
sorry. This is super fun.
But if you look at our portfolio, we've worked with everything. Like my first site here was for a professional horse jumping competition. Little known fact, I don't know anything about that at all. But
now you're a pro.
I know a lot. I actually did watch the one event. I'm not gonna lie. This is kind of interesting. But like I think, especially I look at like Colin, what you and Gabby and Caleb, and I know you three of you do different things, but like, as an overall hub, like learning an industry and being able to write to it is that's maybe the craziest part about this for me, is like what you guys can do in terms of writing interesting, direct content that makes sense about industries that you guys have to learn a lot about, like on the fly.
like depth of understanding of new things is yeah, it's a particular challenge for sure all the time.
Right.
And the writing, like as English speakers, like you see written English or whatnot, it seems accessible, right? But
Sure.
I mean, I could turn that exact same sentiment back out to anyone. Like it's still depth of understanding to understand the feel of what it is, and I think that's a visual type of thinking. Perhaps more than anyone, Jared has to actually speak the day-to-day language of these clients. And
Sure.
I think so much stuff internally at companies is process-driven, and they've got their own language, and you're just expected to glom onto that.
Right.
And then
Right.
like the feel of it from a website and the ultimate experience of it there too,
Sure.
right? So
Sure.
I mean, like, yeah, thanks for the props into the written content side, but certainly it's just you can make the same sort of argument anywhere. And like, I think the idea that we give we care enough to develop that depth of understanding
Right.
for every client.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
something I personally am very passionate about in what we do.
Of
So,
course.
yeah.
And you talked about this a little bit, but like kind of Jared's role in this whole thing, I mean, is like a translator where you kind of have to take information of like
It's a great word for sure.
of learning. This is how a content writer talks about what they do, and this is how web
yeah,
developers
dude.
talk about what they do.
Even translating internally here,
what I
let
mean.
alone out
Yeah.
to other companies. Yeah.
yeah, and this is how like designers talk, and like being able to feed that back in a way that people who are coming to us because they don't have that expertise, are trying to get a response back that makes sense in there.
And it's very true. Like, I had a conversation with Devin on Tuesday, our UX UI designer, and we presented a concept for a website that the customer wasn't really jazzed about, and we kind of debriefed about it, and we walked through it, and I at the end of the meeting, I was like, I just feel like we're not speaking the same language, and what I said was that we think they wanted this, that they really wanted this. And how do we translate each other's kind of thought? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
we might think at one time like a company's value prop is like this technology, right? But they think it's like something else. So like, how can we bridge that gap? How can we tell either both stories together, or like how can they persuade us to think differently and vice versa? Like, so I think we always need to kind of go back and like, okay, cool. Like, we have a thought, right? And if the customer or the client like doesn't agree with that thought, then it's like, okay, cool. Like, let's hear why, and let us tell you why. Like, we thought that, and like, hey, like, we're gonna figure this out. Like, we just have to know how to speak the same language at that point.
And I think that those kind of things too, being here, like when those moments happen where like client isn't maybe thrilled with something,
Which they do.
Yeah,
absolutely, of
Right?
course.
Like we're not flawless around here
Right.
for sure. So
Yeah, and so like when those situations happen, I think those are the kind of things where that it does go out to the group. You know what I mean? Like it does. Like you guys will come out from a meeting, and then all of us will be talking about something, and then like Christy will throw out an idea, Con will throw out whoever like, and that goes back to that point of like chasing the best thing, and you don't know who's going to have an idea who maybe hasn't been in it. And I think that's a beauty of this too, is because we're not all a part of every single project that comes through here, a fresh set of eyes on something
can go a long way.
Can go absolutely a long way in this.
Yep, that's been something that I don't ever want to nail down a process to in our creative approach. And as each of you have come in here, I've always said, the project doesn't always start at design. It doesn't always start at writing. It's let's think about this critically. Whoever has the better idea or a great idea or something, let's go off of that and let that lead.
Right. Absolutely. I think, and us starting to do these stand-up meetings where we talk about like a client, and even if someone's not going to be part of a project, that those things, if we bring up like this is what they want to do, who knows who might have an idea right out the gate that no one else was even thinking of.
Right.
Like just knowing the preliminary like project for that kind of a thing.
Here's the cool thing with all of this that I was thinking about. We're solving problems not for ourselves, for our clients, right? Yeah. So think about like you personally, when you solve a problem for yourself at home, you fix something or whatever, and it's like, okay, like in order to survive, I have to solve my own problems. And so
Right.
you're like, okay, good job, pat on the back, you move on. When you solve a problem for somebody else, you get this adrenaline rush.
Oh yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Like so much more.
Yeah.
And, with certain things that we've done and even awards that we've just recently won, I've...
Oscars, Emmys, Grammys.
Yeah, all of them.
Tonys.
Tonys. Yeah.
It's such an adrenaline rush. And back to our point of our team, we put our entire team on the list of names to credit because we've all worked on it and there's certain people that may have led that and you feel really good for them, but it's this adrenaline rush for everybody, which is incredible. And you're solving these problems for someone else. I mean, really, we're just here to help others. I mean, it's pure community service.
I mean, I would
purely
definitely...
that for an exceptional amount of money.
Well, a variable
I will cut
in
that
place
part
there.
out.
But that's certainly that piece. Like I feel like the thrill of solving a problem for someone else. But again, back to just the sort of a meta idea of problem solving is us solving problems for someone else is solving our problem of needing to be gainfully employed in this world.
Yeah.
And
Right?
also, I
Like,
think maybe,
so,
and maybe even like, not to get so deep, I hasten to say, but like the idea of like, that's maybe why we're all in this industry. Like I love web development because I love the idea. I look at every website like it's a giant, like, you remember like written math problems? Or be like, Jeff has 4 apples, blah, blah, blah. It's pretty much how
It's always apples.
I don't know. But like, that's how I look at everything. Every website I'm given, like it starts like that. Like, here's the giant like math word problem of what this is.
Mm-hmm.
They want to do X, Y, and Z. How do you get to this answer?
Mm-hmm.
Show your work.
Do you ever dream in
Show
code?
your work. Yeah.
Show your work is the worst part of that question.
Sure.
Well, I got to do it.
It's show your work separates the wheat from the chaff, to use an expression there though. Like, cause like you can get lucky and like stumble on a brand, stumble on a cool website from time to time, but like the ability to like explain how you got there and your thought process, like, and what we do, that's us showing our work.
Absolutely.
Right. So, and that's like,
can you explain what a chaff is?
The wheat from the chaff.
Wheat from the chaff?
The wheat from the chaff is an expression wherein the chaff, I believe, is like the stemish sort of thing, and then the wheat is the actual harvestable, consumable piece. So, like, I want the good stuff, and I get rid of that fucking chaff.
Get that chaff
or
out of
cream
here.
to the top kind of thing.
Yeah, cream of the crop.
The cream of the crop would be the best of the crop.
That one really doesn't make any sense, does it?
No.
Cream of the crop? No. I think, so we... real quick hard right pivot. So I guess if there's a thing that I'm curious about that we kind of talked about before we had our little pre-production meeting, is so like you guys started this company, right? Like the two of you and Rob started this. And I guess in that, like, it's such a small team, right? To start these kind of things. And I guess to have that like faith in one another that you're good at what you do and that you can solve these problems together. And I'm curious kind of what solidified that for you guys to all be part of this, that you knew, like, I know that Chrissy is a great designer because of blah. And I know that Colin is a great at content strategy and all that stuff. I don't know if this is in the doc, and I hope this is just right on the fly, but I want you both to talk about this.
I want to make 2 points. The first is that, as you said that, it took every fiber of my being not to break into George Michael, gotta have faith. Because that's just who I am as a human being.
We just broke out into it now.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So I ultimately...
no restraint there at all.
And I think ultimately, like, this is probably a good conversation for Rob to be in the room as well. But I'm just to be flippant with my point a bit. I don't know that I never trusted Chrissy as a professional all that much. It was more like, oh, I know that she's really good at this. I've never worked with her, but everybody says she's really good at this, and like, and same with Rob, and like, it's just like, I just trust you, and so like, And that's the, and again, like as a team sport, like you're going to, I trust you when I don't know the answer to something or don't even know how to get to the answer to something. You're going to give me an opinion. You're going to have thoughts that I can like put into my mix and trust.
Sure.
So it's like it's trust in relationship more than it is in skills.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think by trade, Rob and I are designers, Colin's a writer, right?
Sure,
and, And that's how we put it together. But it is absolute trust more than that. So we're all skilled. We all can do it. We have hands, we have brains, we have eyes.
Right.
We work well together. But to be able to listen to a client, sit down and present something, there's risk involved.
Yeah, of course.
A lot of it was, well, let's just throw some things out there.
Sure.
Some thoughts out there. And, a couple people liked it. We're like, okay, great.
Yeah.
Let's build some steam. And we really have just been kind of building steam and
Sure.
rolling that big snowball down the hill.
Right. And I guess adding to, and sorry to...
No, you're fine. You're fine.
But like, I guess that kind of thing of like looking at problem solving as kind of like a refining process. You're not going to get it right the first time, but as long as there's maybe something to spark that of like, we can solve this together. And then it's just grown from there pretty
the communication
organically.
is a big piece of that too, I suppose. But I don't want to lose sight of so certainly like we took a chance getting this going and to solve that problem. Like even as we sit right now recording this podcast, we're a team of 11, pretty tightly knit.
Sure.
Doing our best to always do our best, right? But so like you guys, Jared came from KeyBank, Tom came from Buffalo News. Why did you take a chance on us?
I think that as you start to build experience in the workforce, like I've always been lucky enough to have really good people that I've worked for and companies that I work for. And I think one of the big motivating factors for me to look outside of banking and to obviously make a switch to this company and industry is the fact that I can have a part in telling people's stories, and I can have a part at being challenged to find a tool to tell that company or that person's story. Like we've touched so many people when you look at it like through various companies, like Fresh Catch, for example. Like that was one of the first projects that I came and been a part of. So I've got to see it from like it was under construction to like Chris and Renee creating all the assets for it and be able to see that up and running and thriving, and that's very rewarding for me. And so when you look at it, it's like we have a part of changing the landscape of Buffalo and Western New York through the projects that we do. Like obviously if we're successful and our strategy works and our design works and our creative works, it only makes that business or that person that we're doing the business for that more successful. So like we have a correlation to like making Buffalo thrive, and that's really rewarding for me. And I think the everyday challenges of like being able to kind of meet a client at their level and being able to kind of present to them and really show off our team on an everyday basis, it's a pretty unique situation for me, and that's what I kind of thrive on.
Yeah. For me, I guess I kind of touched on this before, but being a web developer, for the most part, I've kind of existed under IT departments for the majority of my pretty much every job except for this one. And so I think coming in here where it kind of was as a pivot in a different way where I feel like I could actually let my creativity fly. And that was very like freeing. And I mean, there's a multitude of reasons why I was looking to leave my previous job. But I think initially, without even knowing how great like the culture was here, just knowing how much I liked what you guys had put out and knowing Robbie Grabowski, and like liking his work and kind of liking, he was the one who told me about you guys from the get-go, and then kind of following it since and being like, well, they really care about what they put out. And kind of just having this thing of like, I'd like to be somewhere where they really care about what the end product looks like all the time. Because I've worked for people who just want to get things done and don't care, or as I kind of mentioned previously, they want you to kind of succumb to their way of problem solving. You know what I mean? Like, they want you to solve, here's the problem and here's how I want you to solve it, without allowing you that freedom to kind of take it under your own wing. And then talking to Rob and then coming here and meeting everybody and immediately kind of feeling that, like, all right, everyone's in this together. Like, no matter what you do here, we're all in this to make everything great. Everything we want to be, as we say a lot here, award-winning and our best work and et cetera, et cetera. But, like, actually feeling that. And it's not just words. And that's like a big thing. Right. And I think people say a lot of things, and I've definitely worked at other places where people will say, like, we want this to be the best. But man, does nothing else that they say coalesce with that end game. But here, that really is the prerogative. And I think even us doing this podcast right now 100%. is a statement of, we care. When we say what we want to do something, we're going to do that. And we're going to care about it, and we're going to make it great. And we're not going to skimp on it, and we're not going to, mess around. I think that that's a beautiful thing about this place.
Yeah, for sure.
Stunning. It's beautiful. Well said.
We love you guys.
Yeah.
Great answers.
We're going to hug it out. Should we hug it out?
Hug it out on air. Let me mic this up real quick. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. This was fun.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to the episode. We really hope you enjoy it, and stick around and come back for the next one.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate everyone kind of giving us their time on this platform. Please stay up to date with us. Follow us on Instagram at Mr. Smith Agency. Check out all of our work there. Also, visit our website, mrsmith.agency.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.